For a 16th century navigator, having accurate sea charts could make the difference between life and death. Nautical maps enabled the early modern merchant to track the passage of his ships and their route to profit or loss. And for the Renaissance monarch, ornate sea atlases detailing the latest discoveries were demonstrations of wealth, power and empire. The earliest maritime maps were Portolan charts from the Italian Porto. Portolan literally means relating to harbours. Portolan charts were first recorded around 1285 and were typically rather rudimentary documents, drawn on vellum and intended to accompany written sailing directions. Although we cannot know for certain the origin of Portolan production, technological advancements such as the emergence of the first magnetic compasses in the 13th century and the growth of Genoa, Pisa and Venice as maritime trading powers played a significant part. Over the next 200 years, the Portolan began to be valued not just as a functional tool, but as a work of art to be admired and treasured in one's library. To reflect their new status, these Portolan charts are often astonishingly beautiful objects, embellished in gold and silver and rich in ornamentation and detail. One of the new art form's greatest exponents was Battista Agnese.
Agnese was the mapmaker du jour for the private libraries of emperors and kings. He's known, for instance, to have made 3 atlases for both Charles V and his son Philip II, great chin action in that family, as well as Francis I of France, and not to be outdone, our very own chinless wonder, Henry VIII. Despite this international reputation, virtually nothing is known of Agnese's life. From his inscription on the relatively few atlas he actually signed, it is apparent that he was born in Genoa, probably near the end of the 15th century, but it appears that all of his atlas were produced in the Republic of Venice, beginning around 1535. In Agnese's day, Genoa and Venice were independent rival states, so Agnese's abandonment of his home city for Venice must have been a significant move. Between 1536 and 1564, Agnese produced some highly prized and beautifully decorated manuscript atlases on vellum for high-ranking officials or wealthy merchants. The present example is one of the most exquisitely preserved in existence and is almost jewel-like in its beauty. The first thing to note about the atlas is its binding. Finely tooled in red Morocco, it is a paradigm example of Agnese's workshop, with these gorgeous little brass hands attached to the upper board. The style of binding is somewhat inconvenient in that the clasps get in the way a bit when one is reading the book, but they're characteristic of mid-16th century Venetian fashion.
As with almost all Agnese atlases, the book begins with a table of the declination of the sun, an armillary sphere, and a circular zodiacal calendar. The signs of the zodiac, the constellations that are visible on the ecliptic or the apparent path of the sun over the night sky during the course of a year, are particularly finely executed in both gold and silver. These preliminary features are followed by a set of 3 consecutive charts representing the entire world in a style that Agnese employed in virtually all of his atlases. The first sheet covers the Pacific Ocean and adjacent coasts, including the peninsula of California, after the discoveries of Francisco de Euler and Marcos de Niza in 1539, and which first appeared in Agnese Atlas of 1542. Other features of this chart include a gilt Sumatra, a red-coloured Sea of Cortez, and a vignette of Mexico City in the midst of a lake, copied from the Cortez letter of 1525. The Grand Banks, important cod fisheries, are visible off the east coast of North America. Also of note is the characteristic missing coastline on the west coast of South America for about 18 degrees to 45 degrees, and on the west coast of North America above 35 degrees. This is particularly interesting because it shows that the map is one of great honesty. You wouldn't want to make up missing knowledge if you were working for emperors and kings.
The representation of the world continues with the next sheet, which centers on the Atlantic Ocean and its coast. Notable on this chart is the outline of Africa, which is quite accurate and enriched with many place names along the coastline. This sheet continued virtually without changes over the entire range of Agnese's atlases. The final sheet in this representation of the world covers the Indian Ocean and its coastline, including the east coast of Africa, Arabia, the Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia, and the South China Sea. Noteworthy on this chart are the 8 cherubs representing the major winds, each labeled in Italian with the name of the compass direction. All 3 of these charts include simple, unadorned latitude and longitude scales. The latitudes are organized in the normal system, increasing from 0 at the equator, but the longitudes are marked in 4 ranges of 90 degrees each. Chart 4, the map of Northwest Europe, is a somewhat atypical sheet in that it is a land map in the Portolan style. The focus is clearly on the land, and remarkably, the projection appears akin to Mercator's projection, which wasn't devised until some 45 years later. This map is more heavily decorated than any of the other sea charts in the atlas, with its town vignettes, rivers, lakes, mountains, and forests all covering the land. A distinctive feature, which offers a guide to dating the atlas, is a representation of Scotland as a peninsula rather than an island. Earlier Agnese atlases, such as this example, depict Scotland as an island. The fifth chart covers the western Mediterranean Sea and the Atlantic coast of Spain, Portugal, and Africa, down to approximately Cape Bojador, and includes the Balearics, Canaries, Madeira, and the Azores.
Following Iberia is a set of 3 charts covering the Mediterranean Sea: west, central, and east. If assembled into a single chart, this set would be very much the archetypal Portolan of the area. The chart of the Black and Marmara Seas reflects the importance to Venice of its trade with the East. In a form similar to that of the world map, the 8 principal winds are depicted by cherubs, but here their names are given in Italian: Tramontana, Grego, Sirocco, Ostro. Next is the chart of the Aegean, drawn on a scale about twice as great as the previous 4 charts, and orientated with north to the left. Rose displays the white on red cross of the Knights of Malta. 14 Aegean isles are heightened and gilt, making this one of the most striking sheets in the atlas. The land map of Scandinavia is unlike any other in the atlas. It is copied from the magnificent map of Olaus Magnus, printed from 9 woodblocks in Venice in 1539. The sea is coloured blue and the land yellow, and its coverage includes Scandinavia, Iceland, the Baltics, Russia, as well as Scotland, England, Ireland, Greenland, with some great sea monster action. It's heavily decorated with seated monarchs and numerous town vignettes. This map is important for dating the atlas, in that other maps of this type first appear in 1545. This is also the only non-Portolan style of map in the present book. The overworld map is the most spectacular in the atlas. Magellan's circumnavigation is depicted in silver, now oxidized to black, and Columbus's route to the New World and the journey beyond to the silver mines in Peru are both shown in gold. The map is also useful for dating purposes in that it shows a strait separating Terra de Bacalhau from the rest of North America. This cartographic misconception came about as a result of Verenzano's voyage of 1524 and was widely discredited in the early 1550s.
The final map in the atlas serves as a piece of dramatic comparative cartography when viewed following the previous map. This map shows the world prior to the Age of Discovery and covers the northern part of the Eastern Hemisphere, centered on the Persian Gulf down to the source of the Nile, near the equator. The geography is ancient, but the projection is hemispherical. Exactly what Agnese had in mind by including this map is unclear, but it may be an illustration to assist with the information he produces in the final leaves of the atlas, a page of Latin text explaining the understanding of the ancients and estimating the circumference of the Earth at 20,400 miles. This completes the interior of the book, but on the inside of the upper and lower boards, 2 surprises remain.
The inside of the upper board bears a pencil inscription from Henry Harisse in an amusing amalgam of French and English. It says here, Par Battista Agnese, H. Henry H. Harisse, CF Mont Cabot, page 190, and Surtout, My Discovery of North America, Paris, Welter, 1892, H.H. Henry Harisse was a lawyer and American businessman born in Paris, who moved to the US when he was very young. The inscription is a reference to 2 well-known works by him, written in 1882 and 1892. Harisse wrote extensively on Christopher and Ferdinand Columbus, John and Sebastian Cabot, and the early voyages of American exploration. He is best known for Bibliotheca Americana Virtuosissima, a description of over 300 writings of America published between 1492 and 1551. Through his bequest, the Library of Congress in Washington acquired in 1915 over 200 volumes, including his personal copies of his publications, complete with comments and interleaved notes. At the back of the book, however, we find one of the most charming features of the atlas: a 32-point compass rose nestled behind a mica window and set into the lower board. This is a distinctive feature of numerous atlases signed by or attributed to Agnese, and is a reminder of the true navigational origins of the work and the technological advantages that made the Age of Discovery possible.